I was going to start by saying it was interesting. Chris gave the introduction that they kind of had to find the landscape designer. As I saw the program, I did wonder if I was the token landscape designer. And I was kind of thinking on driving here this morning that I wonder if I was chosen because I used 25 plants total last year versus the usual 20 that a landscape architect uses in a year. I think I might have used 27 actually. But I'm kind of a funny fella that way in that if I speak at the ASLA or at a landscape design conference, I kind of like Ray as a guy who uses a lot of plants. And then I speak to someone like here, and it's kind of like, well, he uses a few more than most, we'll accept him. So I do walk that line between landscape architecture and horticulture. I originally trained in horticulture and now I'm practicing landscape architecture. It's interesting to speak at a venue like this because this was really my beginnings, was plants. And over the years I've realized that what I enjoy the most is when plants and hardscape are combined really beautifully, and that's really what I try to do with my work, is I don't see it as one or the other. And people always try to categorize me. They try to say, you are sort of a plant person. Well, yes, I am, but the gardens that I enjoy the most is when plants are a great component of them, but there's also spatial design. There's a beautiful thought to the way you move through a space. There's a thought to what the effect of the plants is doing as far as enclosing you, opening you up to views, all these things. I think of landscape design more as an art form, and I think of plant use as more of an art form than a collection of things like, look, I've got the latest hybrids, my garden must be good. So that's just my opinion on it. I did want to read my little bio here that was used in the catalogue, because I think this is a good description of what I'm going to talk about today. And this, again, is my opinion. We can never replicate nature, yet my most valuable design ideas occur when I spend time observing natural systems and then interpreting and abstracting this information into my work. By understanding natural and cultural history, we can then add a meaningful layer to this fabric. When I design gardens, my aim is to create new ecologies and systems that bridge the connection between people and place. And that's really, you'll see in my work, that's what I try to do. I don't have a big enough ego to think that I can replicate anything like this. It's impossible. What I do try to do is connect with it. So take the clues that are there and then connect them into the gardens that I work in. And that's what I'm going to try and show. These are all photographs I have taken just driving down the road and stopping. These are the things that inspire me more than going to a museum or seeing good architecture. Those things play into my work, but really the be-all and end-all for me, and the thing that takes my breath away, is this. So I take clues from this information and I apply it to my work. This is in the Santa Lucia Mountains last spring on a site where we were asked to design a landscape around a house that's going to be in this location. And, I think the best tool I can bring to a project like this is humility. I can't do any better than that, so how do I not screw it up? Views from sites that we work on. I see a few little patterns there with some lessons for us all. There is reasons the plants are growing that way. Again, another project in Santa Lucia Mountains we're going to be working on, views from the property. So it's very scary turning up to a site like this and doing a garden. So this is me hiking at Point Lobos last spring and realizing how influential these hikes are to my work. You'll see this come up. Erica Miria, Artemisia pycnocephala being the two predominant plants. And what's fascinating to me is where they stop and they don't go 1 inch further. It's really an interesting pattern. And then on the south-facing slope, completely different ecology. The other thing I wanted to say is we show all these beautiful photographs of just what looks like these effortless landscapes and woodlands, and look how good everything is. Well, nature's kind of hard. And this tells me a lot about what happens on this side. So as does this. And what's come before? Well, humans play a part in this whole thing. It's not just about restoring it back to what it once was. It's not going to happen. We all know that. So my role is to do as well as I can do, given the opportunities that people present me. And in addition, let's not continue to screw up the habitats that are existing, that are sensitive habitats that have not been touched. But so often there's this whole cultural history that's come before as well, and most of our work is pulling out of vena and exotic grasses. So our starting point often is not natural history, yeah, that's a part of it, but more cultural history and what's come before with that, and how can we reinterpret both of those things, and how can people play a part in those spaces. This is more or less a little statement I made. It's not very well worded and has some grammatical issues. But native plants are often used for philosophical reasons in gardens. I believe that they are often underutilized due to the limitations in the creative thought process, where we have not stretched ourselves to think out of the box in their potential uses and effects. They are more often only associated with plantings that lean towards naturalistic effects. I do not believe this allows them to reach their full potential in a wide variety of cases. I have experimented with a variety of uses, and I believe I or no one else can replicate nature. That said, the observation of natural ecosystems is the most important influence on my work, and always will be. I take this information on site-specific projects, and I design what I term abstracted nature. This opens up many diverse themes ranging from my efforts in habitat restoration not really being the word that should be, all the way to exploring native plants in very formal arrangements in tight urban sites. I try to use them wherever given the opportunities. In most cases, people do not come to me and say, hey, I've got this idea, let's use all native plants. Usually that starts with my educating them about the best plants for the situation, whether they be native or not. Wherever possible, I try to use them in creative ways, because often we're not given these big open sites every time where you can start to recreate huge areas of habitat or a new ecosystem that is very large in scale. Often we're given 3-foot wide planters along fence lines in urban sites. So I'm really interested in how we can use plants in those type of situations. This is a topography map, a starting point for a project. I wanted to show you one project whereby I show you the research and analysis that goes into some of our projects. So what the starting point is versus just showing you slides at the end point. So I'm going to show a wide range of slides from beginning in process all the way through to the end of the project. And when I say end, it's never ended, but when the landscape is installed and a few years after installation. From this information, we start to get very excited. In this case, we have these 3 saddles on this side, and very distinct views from these low points. And they're building 3 buildings. There's a barn, a guest house, and a main house. And we are involved in everything from the grading and drainage, driveway design, swimming pool, everything really. So 90% of the work is the hardscape, as far as the amount of drawing that's done, and a smaller portion is the planting. It's equally as important, but it's a smaller part of our work as far as the hours we put into it on a project like this. This also has to go through a design review agency, and it takes about 1 to 2 years before they even start the house. And we're heavily involved in that process. This is an aerial view of the site, showing this is the site right here. So we start to study the patterns closely of what's going on this side. We do a thorough analysis, photographic analysis with panoramics from every point, because we don't have the luxury of going to the site every day to look at a particular point on the site. So we do these panoramic views so that we can always go back to these in the office as we're designing. And I think this tells how important the site influences our work. That's a hand-drawn site analysis based on the topo map and the photographs. And so what you see here is our plans for the road coming in, the 3 buildings, the main house, the guest house, and the barn, and all these viewpoints. And the thing we got very interested on this particular project, which is at Halls Ridge in Santa Lucia Mountains, is this expansion and compression in between the trees and coming out of them and into the trees and coming out of them. So this experience of accentuating what's already there, really, more than what the work that we would do. The work we would be doing is discovering where you would be on the side, on the driveway, essentially, to enjoy the surrounding views. Some of the original early sketches that we do. This is a hand sketch showing the site planning and some of the flavor images for the property up here to give the client an idea of how it might feel in certain areas. All the way through to developing Photoshop models of the house on the property with the driveway coming down, and some of this grassland and how it may appear in relation to the house and the grassland beside the driveway. And then a plant analysis showing the different zones down here, and each plant, and then an image of each plant we're suggesting using. So these are sort of the tools we show not only the design review agencies, the county, we do calculations on water use, and then go to growers to contract grow some of this material. Then we have the fun part, once we get through the design process. I often joke with people now that my job is to measure fire truck turnarounds and visitor parking and all these things that you have to do before you can get to this part. This is a project we did about 10 or 12 years ago in Carmel Valley. It was my first project in Carmel Valley and the reason I moved to Monterey. You can see here, you can see here some of the plants we're using. Vitis Rogers Red, Calamagrostis, Salvia sonamensis. We have some beautiful thymes between the paver here, and on the opposite side of the pathway we have yarrow and some native grasses, and then another Rogers Red grapevine over here. But just a real mix of materials used in a fairly calculated way, but I would say in a fairly naturalistic way. And then in this urban situation, in a very small planter, using a single native plant, Woodwardia fimbriata, wedged between a driveway gate and the house. So very different characters, and we pride ourselves on being very site-specific designers and using the appropriate material given the situation. One of the issues we find is the civil engineer is in before us in some cases. This was a perfect site before they started. And why they need drainage like this, I'm not quite sure. But anyway, it was based on some calculation that I don't understand. And this is a project we actually, when I first worked with Paul Kephart, who's speaking later, this Runner Creek did the restoration of this hillside. That's a before shot, and that's the after shot of the same area.